Mexico last year. All the resorts were running like 40%.
Right. Well, they said they were at 80%. Like long walks on the beach. Or cheesy.
I only drink Tanqueray, just saying.
All right, it's 5:30. We will call the February 1st meeting of Planning Commission to order. Call the roll, please.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demacus,
Yes.
Faken, Gates, Hochhalter,
Yep.
Hochhalter was here,
Yeah. Okay.
Iverson,
Here.
Kibler,
Yes.
Leiter, Nestal, Offerdahl,
Here.
Sessions,
Yes.
Wagonest.
Anyone else? I think Gates is here.
There was an,
Could I clarify, is Gates here or on the line?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Hochhalter, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Thank you.
Yes, I'm here.
all right, let's quorum. We will rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, very good. Before we get rolling, we have a new rep on the Planning Commission from the county. Robert Kibler is here, so welcome to meeting number 1 there, sir. We got a pretty light agenda for you tonight, so shouldn't be too bad. Let's see. So we'll move on to approval of the January 4th meeting minutes.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Bauman. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Commissioner Iverson. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demacus,
Yep.
Hochhalter,
Yep.
Iverson,
Yes.
Kibler,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Sessions.
Yes.
Motion carries. Oh, Gates, yeah. This is on the phone.
Oh, yeah, my apologies, Gates.
Okay, motion carries. So, agenda item number 5. It's a request on the application from Jason Haugen and Ashley Cowden representing Glenn Schumeyer to facilitate a lot line adjustment through the creation of 2 new outlots to be known as outlots 24 and 25. The properties are described as being located in the southeast of the southwest of Section 34, Township 155 North, Range 82 West, addressed as 6021 37th Avenue Southeast and 6061 37th Avenue Southeast. We'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chairman Demacus and members of the commission. Staff's going to waive their oral presentation, just defer to the staff's written report.
Very good. Is there any questions from the commission regarding the staff report? Pretty straightforward item. Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing then. Is anybody present who wishes to speak on item number 5? Anybody who wishes to speak against item number 5? Anybody who wants to speak on item 5? All right. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. I will turn it over to the commission. Is there a motion regarding number 5?
Motion to approve based on staff recommendations and finding of fact.
Motion by Commissioner Offerdahl to approve based on findings of facts and recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner
Barnett.
Sorry,
That's all right.
brain freeze. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demacus,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Kibler.
Abstain.
Sessions,
Yes.
Offerdahl.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Sorry, Commissioner Hochhalter, did he get a chance to vote as well?
Oh, Hochhalter?
Yes.
Now, motion carries. Item number 6 is a zoning map amendment, plan unit development overlay, and preliminary plat. It's a request from Blake Nybakken, representing Henry Land Holding LLC, for a zoning map amendment from C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to C2 General Commercial District with a PUD overlay plan unit development. Excuse me. The proposal seeks to establish 7 mid-rise buildings up to 90 feet tall, with 4 of the 7 buildings comprised of commercial on the first floor and residential on the second floor and above. The remaining 3 buildings will be solely residential use. The proposal will include 468 residential units, approximately 53,277 square feet of commercial space, and 2 public plazas. 2 additional buildings to accommodate drive-through food retail are also proposed. A plat containing 12 lots is also proposed to delineate the various buildings and uses on the site, and is to be known as Highlander Estates 4th Edition. The property is legally described as Lot 13, Highlander Estates Subdivision, Section 34 of Township 155 North, Range 83 West, Ward County, North Dakota. It's currently unaddressed and is located west of 2251 36th Avenue Southwest and north of the Trinity Hospital development. So we'll turn it over to staff for the report.
Thank you, Chairman Dominguez, members of the commission. So here's the subject property. The proposal includes a preliminary plat showing 12 lots total, 2 of which are outlots, or denoted as outlots. The existing zoning for the area is C1 and C2 along 37th. R3, which is now our RM zoning district, lies to the north, and that's our multifamily residential district. The future land use map provides 37th as a mixed-use corridor. The property was previously mixed use and was changed a few years ago to neighborhood commercial. Neighborhood commercial designation is entirely out of place, with the broader corridor being designated as mixed use and with the scale of the hospital to the south. As we're in the process of updating the comp plan, 37th corridor as a whole will be reevaluated. So here's the preliminary plat. So lots 4, 5, and 6 contain the 2 public plazas that are being proposed, and then as well as the parking structure. So I've labeled those for clarity. So here's the proposed site layout. The pink lines are the proposed plat lines, and the orange shapes are the building footprints. So the development is proposed to be developed in phases. The first phase will include much of the parking on the east half of the development to include the parking garage. This is denoted in blue. And the parking garage will include 350 parking stalls. The next phase will include that in red. And the remaining phases are in the other colors and may be consolidated or constructed separately depending on market conditions. So it may move more quickly than separated phases in discussion with the applicant. The proposed landscape plan is provided for reference and follows the phasing plans from the previous slide. And keep in mind the open space public plazas help bring the site into alignment with overall landscaping requirements. The PUD component helps provide this flexibility that may not otherwise be available if the site were left C2 alone. So I'll move into some of the renderings provided by the applicant. So this is the aerial view of the site. And here's, includes a parking garage and 7 7-story structures, as well as on those 2 outlots, proposing 2 drive-through pass-through facilities in this rendering. So this is from the intersection of 37th Avenue Southeast and 23rd Street Southeast. The site includes a community video board. Just go into a little bit of detail here on that. So the community video board will be similar to the one provided at the Lights development in West Fargo. The sign's purpose is to promote on-site activities and community events. It's an additional rendering. This is from the southwest corner of the property. Here's a rendering of the East Plaza. This one's proposed to be hardscaped. Includes a bandstand for performances. This is a winter rendering, obviously. Skating rink is one of the amenities that may be incorporated into the hardscape plaza area. Here is the West Plaza. And here's a picture of our staff's site visit. And moving on to findings of fact. So the applicants have submitted a complete application. The property is zoned C1, and they're requesting amendment to C2 with the PUD overlay. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on what the goals of the comprehensive plan that are in alignment with this particular proposal. So housing goal number 1, what this housing goal is ensure housing development is compatible with existing adjacent land uses while providing accessibility to public infrastructure, key community features, and natural amenities. So the site will be situated west of a commercial subdivision, situated north of Trinity, which is the largest non-governmental employer in Minot. Amenities of the site proposed include 2 public plazas, which if approved will be considered a key community feature. Housing goal number 1, policy 2, ensure commercial development mixed-use areas are appropriately dispersed throughout the city as guided in the comprehensive plan. So the mixed-use proposal is proposed to be sited within an area largely designated as mixed use that has yet to develop a traditional mixed-use development. And so despite that mixed-use corridor being designated as a mixed-use corridor, this would be the first proposal presented to Planning Commission, really the city, as a mixed-use development. So land use goal number 1, policy number 8, encourage mixed land use where appropriate, more efficient use of the land. The site is maximizing the land potential by providing more than 450 residential units, more than 50,000 square foot of commercial, retail, and office space, and 2 public plazas. Land use goal number 3, policy number 5, which is the same as transportation goal number 1, policy number 6. So encourage shared parking facilities for commercial, industrial, and mixed-use projects to reduce impervious surface, minimize land consumption, and minimize traffic. So the site relies on shared parking amongst all the proposed lots, primarily a parking garage that will be situated within the center of the development. Economic development goal number 2, support, enhance, and expand existing businesses and promote new businesses in Minot. The proposal would establish more than 50,000 square foot of retail and office space upon full build-out. So Minot Planning Commission has the authority to hear the case and make a recommendation to City Council. So here's probably where I'll spend most of my time. I think what I'm going to do is I'll read through these, otherwise you're going to get inundated with this blue screen. So I'm going to find something a little bit nicer to look at that kind of helps me move through it. I'll read through these slides and you guys can at least look at maybe the aerial rendering so we can get some context here as I'm discussing things. So probably keep it here unless I need to move around. So staff is recommending approval subject to conditions. So I have 24 to go through. I'll try to highlight as many as I possibly can as quickly as possible. In the written staff report, I believe there was 22. We did add 2 additional conditions based on comment received from Alderman Padragula. So staff is recommending approval subject to the conditions. Condition 1 is a standard condition for new developments. And this just surrounds construction of sidewalks and connectivity to the existing system, standard. Condition 2 and 3 related to site plan requirements and final driveway and access placement, that's standard as well. Condition 4, an improved traffic impact study will be required that includes special event parking analyses, public transit route identification, and bus and rideshare layout in coordination with the city. If you'll recall from the written report staff provided, the site's parking is adequate to support the commercial and residential structures on site. The community plaza and special events require additional parking, and there may be a number of paths forward to accommodate this component of the proposal. No, that was just habit, so my apologies. Condition 5 denotes that the necessary improvements stemming from Condition 4 will be made by the developer. Right, so the results of that study, analyses, that will be the responsibility of the developer. So Condition 6 denotes a transit shelter will be required. The specific location will be determined by city staff. Conditions 7 through 9 are standard for all development. This is related to a stormwater management plan, connection fees for sewer, and then a development agreement. Very common for, especially for a development scale and scope like this. So the final plat, if you recall, we transitioned to a preliminary and final plat format for getting subdivisions approved. The final plat will need to include the current floodplain, proposed floodplain, existing easements, new access and utility easements, so on and so forth. This is all pretty standard requirements. Condition 11 outlines the requested proposal that includes up to 468 units, 53,277 square foot of commercial space and 2 public plazas. So we just want to delineate specifically what's being requested, ultimately what will be approved. And then condition 12, as far as the uses, are restricted to those within the underlying C2 district. Condition 13 clarifies the public plaza uses and how they are categorized in the land development ordinance. Effectively, they're considered parks and associated facilities and outdoor recreation per our land development ordinance table, use table. Condition 14 provides that a clean submission of the application or the PUD supplement will be required and outlines which pages are necessary. This will form the foundation of the PUD if it's approved. I'll go through that. So page 6 and 26 of Exhibit 5, I believe, that would include the narrative, the parking minimum to align with phasing and parking plan. Pages 8 through 15 would be the renderings. However, staff is recommending the outlot development be removed. This is because if the outlots are approved, the proposed parking will be reduced, and yet parking by nature of the additional development will create more demand. And so we're already at the cusp between the residential commercial and meeting parking minimums. We just want to make sure that we're not causing issues by doing too much. The applicant will always be able to come back and submit a PUD amendment through a proposal. Presumably, once we find out the results of the parking study, would be the best time to do that so that we have more information to see exactly what the impacts would be to provide yet even more vertical development on the site. Page 21, phasing and parking plan. Again, the outlot lines removed. Page 22 would be the sign exhibit, and page 25, the landscaping plan. Condition 15 would be outlots 11 and 12, effectively just spelling out that they'll be dissolved and incorporated into lots 7 and 10, respectively, and remain dedicated as parking, as illustrated in page 20 of Exhibit 5. Number 16, this relates to the signage on site so that we can understand fully what we can expect to see. So additional permitted signage would be limited to attached signs. So that's typically the wall signs, and rather than pole signs. So the pole signs would be largely dedicated and utilized via the on-site video board. I am going to bring up here, because I have made a minor modification to this particular condition that I want to highlight. You can see why I gave you something nicer to look at while I was reading through this. So I bolded this for emphasis. I don't know how well it even comes up, so I might just highlight it. So it's with regard to, was it 16B? So video board messaging is limited to promoting on-site residential, commercial, and public plaza activities, as well as the promotion of plaza-sponsored and community-wide event promotion. What I've added is the words "or alerts" from the written staff report, and also added a few examples. So previously it was e.g. North Coast Fest, North Dakota State Fair. I've also added amber, silver alerts, and weather-related warnings. So if it is able to be used to kind of generate awareness about some other issues in the community, then that would be a wonderful addition. The sign area of the video board would be limited to 414 square foot. Other video message board standards would defer to section 5.1-10 of our sign code, which is related to video display boards. Trash handling and recycling enclosures would need to meet the C2 underlying requirements, which is just enclosing the trash cans. The access easement is related to the, effectively the, I want to call it a ring road, but the on-site circulation loop that goes around the development, provides connectivity throughout the entire site. So lots 4 through 6, I'm gonna this is the West Plaza, the parking lot, and the East Plaza. So ultimately, wherever we have on-site amenities and or necessary infrastructure that's installed to support the development, the city needs to be aware of the potential that that particular property, if it's subdivided away from the rest of the development, has the potential to come back to the city and or county for unpaid taxes. So we really want to tie some type of vertical improvement, some type of value to a private property owner, anywhere there's some of this more generically required infrastructure to support a development. In this case, we've got a parking structure. It's not going to generate a lot of money for somebody, or a public plaza, also the same. So there's a number of ways to handle this to ensure that it doesn't come back to the city or county. Common lots are one method, but given the likely TIF application, also the DA requirement, the development agreement requirement, or some other agreement that might coincide with this development, there are other options available. So this just ensures that it's addressed at some point via whatever is determined to be the most appropriate method to address this. We just want to make sure that we address this potential eventuality because we want to avoid it. Condition 21, this just ensures that we place some non-access control lines. These are effectively anywhere there is not an approach, we put a non-access control line so that a future property owner, if there was one, didn't think that they could just place an approach anywhere along. 37th is a minor arterial, a planned minor arterial, or already is one, and then 23rd would be a future collector as well. So we want to make sure that we are controlling approach spacing on those roads so that we can ensure that they keep their integrity to move traffic and not get congested. So keep moving. This one, number 22, would be to install exterior access to the underground parking for all mixed use and residential buildings. This would be a stairwell on the end of the building going to all floors, which would be acceptable, and each building on the property shall have a separate Knox box and keys. So I'm going to explain this just for those watching online or in the crowd here, or for you guys. All this does is provide emergency services the ability to have a secondary access to the garage and the structure overall. So the Knox box and keys is effectively the skeleton key to the structure and gives emergency services such as fire the ability to gain access as needed to address an emergency without, say, having to have somebody come on and unlock the door and let them in. And so this is number 23 and 24. So conditions 23 and 24 were added following comment again by Alderman Padragula. I'm going to bring these up on screen since you won't have them in your written report. So condition 23 would just be an emergency management plan that would be created and approved by the Ward County Emergency Manager. So this requirement is something stemming from emergency management discussions where larger public gathering spaces should have plans in the event of emergency. I would guess that the applicant is familiar with some of these that might be required in other communities, but this just ensures that if something happens that, whether it's a missing kid or some other type of emergency event that those on site, that there's necessary signage or people are guided appropriately to function the way they need to ensure safety. Condition 24, this is just a catch-all to ensure that the buildings take into consideration the helipad that's used by Trinity to the south. Building lighting or other modifications may be necessary, and we just want to make sure that this is thought of as they're going vertical. Otherwise, that is it, and I will stand for questions.
Thank you, John. Any questions for staff?
I have a few, please.
Go ahead.
So for the parking garage, you indicated that there are going to be 468 residential apartments. How many of those are one bedroom and how many are two, do we know?
Chairman DeMakis, Commissioner Sessions, we don't know the exact distribution, and so I defer to Blake if he's got additional information. What we did was make assumptions that there was going to be a split between 1 and 2 bedroom units. I believe there will not be 3s. Again, at this time, that's what's planned. I could envision a scenario where potentially maybe that would change, and thereby you'd have a reduction in units and overall reduction in parking requirements, at least by our standards.
You mentioned that the outlots would become parking. What do you estimate would be, I guess, the shortage at this point?
Chairman DeMakis, Commissioner Sessions, I think we're about a wash. I calced that, again, with our estimates on a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom, given it's a very estimate that there is going to be 26,000 square foot of bar restaurant, 11,000 square foot of restaurant general merchandise, and 15,000 square foot of office. And this was provided by the applicant, it's just estimates. That approximately 1,211 parking stalls be provided. Our overall parking requirements, again, with that assumed distribution of 1 and 2 units and that different distribution of commercial uses, would be about 1,198. They're just right at that amount where the on-site residential and on-site commercial meets what's required under our parking code. Keep in mind mixed use, there is some efficiencies that are gained through mixed use because commercial tenants, obviously you're going to use commercial parking stalls during the day more often than not, and residential in the evenings throughout the night more often than not. So not every parking stall will be maximized. It might be weekend scenarios where that is the case. That's one of the benefits of those mixed-use developments is they provide those efficiencies.
Okay, and was this including the, I guess, the community space and also the drive-throughs or drive-through that's
Right, no,
proposed?
great question. So Chairman DeMakis, Commissioner Sessions, no. So we excluded, we counted the spaces that were provided at the sites of those drive-through locations. And the plaza just have not been calced at all, so that's not included. So we know at least the minimum parking requirements are sufficient to support the proposed on-site residential and commercial. We still have questions on how the plaza is going to be supported as far as parking go, and that's why, as far as that condition number 4, we require them to provide a parking study and a plan forward to figure out how we're going to accommodate the additional demand on parking, say on an evening or weekend event. What does that look like? And how are the impacts of parking? How are they mitigated? What we don't want to have is our adjoining commercial developments bear the burden of having
Right.
people coming to and parking on lots that effectively they didn't pay for. So we want to make sure that the issues are addressed, and if that can happen through a shared parking agreement, as I alluded to in the staff report, the written staff report, obviously the largest parking lot, the closest proximity would be Trinity's. That's a discussion for the applicant to have with Trinity, if that's even an option. To me, that makes sense. Otherwise, adding a couple floors to the parking garage is an option. Purchasing additional land, developing it as parking is an option. There's a number of paths forward to mitigate that. And so we just want to see what that parking analysis shows, and then we can have a better idea of what's an appropriate path forward.
Is there an estimate of how many additional parking spots are needed, or?
Not that I'm aware of, so unless Blake has additional information, but at this time, I believe we'll be waiting on the engineer study.
Okay. And then you did mention the agreements between other commercial, neighboring commercial properties. Are there any in the works right now? Have they approached any of the businesses, or?
I'll defer to Blake as well
Okay.
on that question.
Okay,
And Blake's the applicant for reference.
okay. Let's see.
Thank you. Anything further for staff? Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
To our planning staff, I just want to first of all say thank you. This is a big project, and you've obviously put a lot of time and work into it. So on behalf of the community, we appreciate that a lot, and all of the thoughtfulness that's been put in. I appreciate that some of these things are being addressed and have been addressed already in the recommendation, rather than us as commissioners needing to ask questions. And it's obvious that you have put a lot of time and thought and done a lot of the legwork for us in this. So thank you for that. My next question is actually for engineering, and so I'm wondering if our assistant engineer would be able to come up and just answer a question. In particular, I was really intrigued by the mention of a below grade or a below grade or above grade pedestrian crosswalk or pedestrian opportunity across 37th, and I'm just curious how that would work. If you can tell us a little bit about that, Emily.
Commissioners, that's an idea that's been floated around. Part of that will come into play with what the analysis shows as to if there is a need for shared parking, if people are potentially parking in other areas, then we would want to look at seeing if something like that is required. Keeping in mind that there would be a traffic signal at that intersection regardless. That's already planned in the works, that there would be a traffic signal there, so you'd have a protected marked crosswalk. And then you could look at potential other options for either overhead or below grade crossings. There's utility conflicts that would have to be worked through, and making sure we have enough right-of-way to do these things. We would potentially look at those if, am I touching buttons? You're touching buttons. We would look at those potentially if the parking study pointed us in that direction. If we see that all the parking is being handled on site, maybe there's less need for that. And obviously it would be a combination of what the studies say. Obviously, then what the applicant. There's potentially more than one route we could take to get to the solution, but those are on the table.
Cool. I would love to just kind of voice my opinion and ask, our city staff, whether it's planning or engineering. When I looked at the project, I was a little bit hesitant about putting, potentially 1,000 people and on one side of the street, and our largest employer on the other side of the street / medical provider, and then putting a 40-mile-an-hour 5-lane road or 3-lane road, a fast-moving, lots of cars road in between them. And we ran into some issues even as we were looking at the Blue on Broadway about, shared parking may have existed to alleviate the burden of the developer to have to put more parking lots in, but it ran right across a major arterial in our community. And so just crossing that street was prohibitive. I would love to see something that provides uninterrupted pedestrian-first access between these two projects. And I think it would be a boon for the rest of the business community on the north side of 37th to have that, because hospital workers are coming to and fro, going to restaurants. Again, as a planning commissioner who looks at just kind of the overall big picture quality of life thing, I would love to see something like that. So if there's a way that we can make it happen, obviously engineering, planning, applicant, you'll need to talk, but I just want to throw my support behind that concept or idea. I've seen it happen in other communities. It's really nice, and it's a great amenity from the people first, not car first or engineering first, but like people first side of things. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, anything further?
Yeah, and again, perhaps this has been covered before, but I mean, this is a pretty significant number of residential units, and I wonder if there's been any consideration as to the character of the building itself. Is it an adult community? Is it a mixed community, like it's a sort of mixed commercial and residential? Because I don't see a lot of places other than the imagined ice skating rink where kids would play, except perhaps in the parking lots.
Thank you, Chairman Dominguez, Commissioner Kibler. I'll probably defer to Blake as well, because he knows what they've done and constructed in other communities across North Dakota and how it's been marketed and successful in what age groups. Obviously, the public plazas and things are there to pull in a breadth of ages to participate in some of this. It's not just for those on site, clearly. And that's one of the biggest things. It's not a private plaza. It's inherently to advertise, pull in activity and people to the site. And so despite if they live there, I do envision a lot more of the community coming to this site and functioning with it of all age groups. But I think when we open the public hearing and Blake presumably comes to the podium, then that'd be a great question for Blake.
Thank you. Anything else for staff at this time?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will there be any cost to the park? Or, any cost to the park at all, as far as taxes and?
Chairman Dominguez, Commissioner Sessions, as far as how those particular elements are financed, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to play out. The developer has presumably explored, he's working on exploring a TIF. That's a tax increment financing tool. I do provide a very brief explanation of a TIF. They have other financing tools as well that they're potentially exploring, and I'll defer to Blake. As far as what a TIF is, I'm just going to actually read off my paragraph, and this is for the benefit of the community as well, and anybody watching. So the city has a tax increment financing program. Potentially this would be utilized to pay for some of the proposed public improvements. Very briefly, if this is approved, a bond would be issued by the city or another local government organization for a specified amount to cover certain infrastructure costs related to development. Taxes on the increment, so that's the difference between the taxes collected pre-construction and post-construction, would be allocated toward the bond payment, meaning our current tax collections would be frozen, and what we do is defer any additional taxes collected because of the $150 million that is going up. We would use that money to pay off the bond payment that was used to pay for some of these infrastructure costs. Again, that's up to council to weigh in. Beyond council, it's going to take more. I will defer to Blake. I don't want to hijack this. Mainly, we want to just evaluate the uses on the site at this time. Obviously, planning commissioners, and everyone's welcome to comment at the TIF discussion at the city council as a resident, but that's not what's being evaluated here. I know there's many different mechanisms, and whether they're going to ultimately privately fund it, that's up to them, so.
Okay, I was curious for the long term.
Yeah.
And just another question, just to get a visual of the size, is it going to be comparable to, say, Blue on Broadway is going to be higher than that, or the one by MSU, or even the lights in Fargo, I guess?
So Blue is what, 5 stories? These are proposed to be 7, so 90 feet at the peak. 75 foot would be at the finished floor level of the 7th story. As far as perspective, Blue's about 5, 60, 65, 70 feet tall. So another 20 feet on top of that. So they are larger buildings. Obviously, this is a much larger development in its entirety. Blue is probably about 10% the scale of what this is, not in height, but overall everything. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for staff right now? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the public hearing and open the floor. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on behalf of the agenda item?
Good evening, Blake Nybakken with Epic Companies, and I was trying to take down as many notes as I could as the questions were coming up there, so I'd be happy to try to address those and any other questions that you might have. So a little background, I guess I'll maybe work backwards with maybe the most fresh comments in my mind for the questions that came up. Yeah, the size of this, so we did develop and are developing the lights in West Fargo. So the eastern half of this development is about the same size as the lights. This plaza is a little bit longer than that, but that was a little over an acre in size for where the plaza is between the buildings. This one, I think, is about 60 feet longer than that, so it's over 300 feet in length. So it's about the size of a full-size football field there, where the hockey rink was shown in the one winter scene. So yeah, it's about 16 acres in total size for the development. So the lights is about the eastern half of that, and then everything that we're showing on the western half is in addition to what would be at the lights. And then our current buildings at the lights, the first one was a 5-story building, then we did a 6-story building, and now we're doing a 7-story building on the west side. So I tried to utilize the current tenants from our commercial mix there. Those are all 2 stories of commercial floors in those buildings. And we do have a wide variety of tenants in those. We've got a bar and restaurant that's about 9,000 square feet. We've got a small local coffee shop and a clothing boutique. We've got a bank that's the entire main floor of one of the buildings. We've got a health clinic that's up on the 2nd floor of one of the buildings. So a small barbershop, photography studio. So there's a pretty wide mix, and that's kind of what we tried to work into our best guess for what might be commercial tenants in a development like this. As I mentioned, the plazas itself, you know, in regards to your comment, Mr. Kibler, about, you know, areas to play, you know, the one is about the size of a football field where it was hardscaped, and there can be a full-sized hockey rink there. The other side on the west end of the development would be pretty similar in size, and that one's going to be more of the greenscaped, softer, more landscaped area, a little less programmable than the one where you could have food trucks, you know, stuff going on in the plaza side. So we are working with engineering on the parking study. We worked with Ackerman to do the traffic impact study on the front end of things. And now after comments back, we'll work with them to try to figure out where we're at and what new information would show. I think the parking that we're providing right now takes care of everything on site and probably 99% of things that happen. It'll be the handful of events that may happen there, similar to how they happen at the lights, where if you get more people that show up, whether it's for a concert or something else, there where you'll have a surplus of demand that you need to handle, whether it's through ride shares, through other transport, shared parking, and we are talking to neighbors. We're involved in some property just to the east of there. We've talked to the folks at Trinity. We've talked to the landowners to the west of there. So we're already engaging in some of those discussions, and I'm confident that we can come up with a solution for that. Let me see. In regards to pedestrian safety, again, at the lights in West Fargo, we did work with the city. We do have an underground pedestrian crossing there that goes underneath Cheyenne Street. There is a lot of residential neighborhoods to the south and to the west of there, so and even to the east. So that was definitely thought out, and that was done in conjunction with our development coming online there, the hockey rinks there. So there's a lot of people that between going to the hockey rinks, coming to the plazas, there's a lot of pedestrian activity there. So that was definitely in the forefront, and we would be willing to explore any options so that we could make that a safe intersection there for any interactions going on. Yeah, I guess I'm open to any other questions, and I apologize if I missed any. I was trying to take notes as I went, but if there are any other specific questions, I'd be happy to try to address those now.
Thanks, Blake. Any specific questions for Blake from the commission?
No, but Mr. Nybakken, I think I've seen the lights in Fargo, and the building's phenomenal. It's a great,
Thank you.
of course, asset to the city, and I'm sure it will be to Minot too. The basic issue is the parking, and I think that can be worked out, and the safety.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you. Any questions for Blake as well? Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Nybakken, first thing, I just want to say thank you to you and Epic Companies. It's really, really cool to see a development firm come in and take a risk on a general mixed-use development in our community, especially one of this size. This is not the only one that you're working on right now, which is really nice. It's great to see similar projects happening with Blue on Broadway. When this project was first announced in the newspaper, I told some people close to me, like, I absolutely love this project. I'm just a little frustrated about the location because I would love to see some redevelopment downtown. Great project, just not the great location. And then, however many weeks later, the M building was purchased, and we're very excited about the development of that and looking to see the details for that. So I'm very pleased for that, and thank you again for investing in our community and taking the risk to do that. It's really exciting to see. My questions for you are actually in the vein of potential site adjustments for human-sized development rather than vehicle-sized development. And I'm wondering if you might be able to answer a few questions on some tweaks that I kind of observed and was curious about that I think would make it a more amenable place to be and be outside, feel a little bit more comfortable as just a person, maybe walking to a car, not feeling like you're out in the middle of an open prairie in the middle of winter, and because we all know that that's not fun, especially on days like today. So just things that we can do and maybe some slight changes that really could improve quality of life, just enjoyment of the property and the expanse of everything. So that's kind of my preamble there.
Sure.
So when I see projects that are similar to this in other communities, one of the first things I think of is it is a very long distance from the road to the buildings. And I'm not a fan of parking lots in general and would love to see maybe a little bit more cover, maybe a little bit more, again, human-sized protection. Like there's some very basic elements about being human that even as our technology develops, we still don't like to be standing out alone in our field or in a field. So one thought that I had was I was curious if, I'm curious if maybe a row or two of parking, or if you'd be open to at least considering a row or two of parking closest to the 37th Avenue Southwest, would potentially be shifted to the back. So what that would do is it would essentially move the buildings themselves closer to the road, create a more urban feel, could potentially provide traffic calming, because we know that as things get closer to the road, people inherently drive a little slower. We feel like it's maybe not such a distance from the sidewalk to there. We feel like the sidewalk's a little more protected. We feel like all those things are there. So I'm curious, first of all, with that.
Yeah, no, great
idea.
question. One of the considerations and one of the reasons why we have it kind of laid out the way that we do, all of the commercial space that Mr. Van Dyke mentioned is going to be at the property is all going to be in those south buildings. And so we loaded the parking heavier on the south side of the development. The buildings that are shown on the north side of the development are all residential. So we're showing those with underground and main floor parking in addition to the surface parking. But we wanted to make sure that on the south side of the development where the commercial development was happening there would be the majority of the parking available for that.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So the second question then, and this may be a way that everybody can win, would you be open to possibly adjusting plans to making a 6-foot berm at some point between the parking lot and the sidewalk or between the parking lot and the road? I think in terms of, again, pedestrian design, what that would do is provide a little bit more human level protection, comfort. And from the road level, it would obscure a little bit some of the vast expanse of a parking lot between the road and the building. It may make, I think, visibly or visually from the road, it would almost make it seem like some of those buildings were on top of the berm. It would just cut down a lot of the dead space. And I think it could make it, again, from the pedestrian perspective, a more attractive property from first glance, and then also could provide some of those traffic calming benefits for that area, which is going to be inundated with traffic.
Yep. Yeah, we're definitely open to that, and I think our plan from Confluence may have indicated a landscape buffer, and I thought that we had a berm. We had it on one rendition of the plans for sure, but yeah, if we can incorporate that, if we have all the space to do that, yeah, we would be all for that. We're also talking about doing that in certain areas on the east end of our development. You know, if we've got a really active plaza, we're going to want to make sure that we protect that for, you know, that's one of our main access points as you come in and headlights shining in and stuff. So we're trying to be cognizant of that as much as we can.
Great. I appreciate that. And I think when we know better, we need to do better. And I think that that's one thing that would be hopefully fairly simple on your end as the developer to make sure that this project starts out with its best foot forward. And I think we all want it to be successful.
Mr. Chairman? Just a general question, and perhaps you know this, maybe this would be part of the management company's question, but it's exciting, beautiful looking building. It does have, to use your phrase, sort of more residential footprint and hardscape footprint than green space. And I'm wondering, where would the snow go when you clear these lots, for example? With these beautiful trees around here, where's the space would you be hauling that snow off to?
Yeah, our maintenance team, they do a great job at that right now. In areas where we do have higher density developments, we're doing some stuff in downtown Fargo. Yeah, sometimes it has to get hauled away. Sometimes you try to preserve spots where you can pile it up there, but yes, ultimately, sometimes you just have to haul it away.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question. This is kind of on the practical side of it. Maybe I missed it, but are there restrooms that are accessible to these common spaces that would be maintained by the building?
Yeah. In our one of our first two buildings, the northernmost one,
Okay.
We are planning a space on there that would be access to facilities like that would be open to the public.
Okay, that would be accessible from inside of that core?
It would be from the inside of the plaza, yeah.
Thank you.
And then obviously, yeah, we try to take that into consideration whenever we can. You know, we've designed some spaces where, like in the city of West Fargo, that's owned by the city. So we worked with them pretty closely. There's a space inside one of our buildings that kind of has like a little warming house and concessions area. It's got public restrooms in it. So yeah, we're making considerations for that right now.
Thank you. Anything further for Blake from the commission?
If I could add one more thing, I missed one of my other notes. We were talking about the apartment mix. That was one of the questions that came up. In one of our first building that's coming up right now, it's about 50-50 for one bedrooms and studios versus 2 bedrooms, and then just a small number of 3-bedroom units. So those, usually the majority is 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, and those are in this first unit matrix that I'm looking at, it's almost 50-50. So.
Thank you. Anything further for Blake right now from the commission? All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll let you know. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on behalf or on this agenda item? All right, seeing none then, we'll close the public hearing regarding this agenda item and turn it over to the commission.
Move to approve based on staff recommendations and finding of fact with one additional recommendation, and that is that the developer does use a 6-foot landscaping berm on 37th and, along the 37th Avenue Southwest and the 23rd Street Southwest edges of the property. And if I can just get a visual clarification from Mr. Van Dyke and make sure that that is not something totally crazy.
It is not totally crazy.
Okay.
I just want to see if, can we add in the ones that, condition 23 and 24 that I had provided in the slides, but was not included, just to clarify that those are included as well as part of our staff recommendations and conditions.
Okay, so to amend my motion, all 24 of the recommendations that were provided by staff, and then the addition of a 25th, which would be the inclusion of a 6-foot landscaping berm on the 37th Ave Southwest and 23rd Street Southwest edges of the property.
Yeah, there is a motion by Commissioner Bowman to approve based on the 24 recommendations provided by staff at the meeting tonight, along with an additional one for a 6-foot berm along 37th and 24th. Or, I'm sorry, what's the other street? 6th.
23rd.
23rd?
Yep.
23rd. Thanks. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Sessions. Any discussion?
I have some discussion, I guess.
Commissioner Barnett.
Mr. Van Dyke, if we are so, I don't want to say strict in our proposal here, amendment to have this, landscaping 6-foot berm, which I think is a great idea, does that, I guess, hinder or limit our applicant? For example, if during the final stages, it's come to pass, hey, we can't do, because of easements or whatever reason, maybe a 6-foot berm isn't acceptable there, but then they would maybe say, well, let's do something else. Is there a way we should maybe word that to make it a little more flexible to the applicant? Or do we feel that that's being flexible enough?
Great question.
I would appreciate the flexibility if I could chime in. That would be helpful, because, can I step up for just a second?
Well, technically no,
So-
because the public hearing is closed.
I think ultimately, if there are alternatives to affect the same, and that's to provide visual relief for the parking lot. So if we can reword it to include a 6-foot berm or alternative to affect the same, that would provide the visual relief. I think that provides Blake Nybach enough flexibility to kind of figure out how they can go about and create that visual relief. Maybe it's a hedgerow. Maybe it's something else that's not so strict on the amount of width that you might need. Yeah, thumbs up from Blake. It seems like that's amenable, so I think that's...
Is now the time that I amend my motion to?
To make life simpler, I suggest this one be acted upon and then we just do another one versus, because there's a motion and a second on the table. I suggest, merely a suggestion, acting upon this and then going from there. Just my suggestion. So discussion is still open. If there is any further.
I'll just share with my colleagues that I will be voting no on this particular motion because I do think that Commissioner Barnett has a great idea, and that's what I'm now throwing my weight behind.
I think that's what you were going for.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification and the help on that.
So I believe discussion is closed. Then we will call a roll on this particular motion.
Barnett,
No.
Bauman,
No.
Demacus,
No.
Gates,
No.
Hochhalter,
No.
Iverson,
No.
Kibler,
Abstain.
Offerdahl,
No.
Sessions.
No.
All right, the motion does not pass, so the item is still out there. If there is an alternative motion that wants to be made, I will entertain it. Commissioner Bauman.
I would like to move to approve the application based on staff recommendations and finding of fact, including all 24 presented recommendations from staff, with the addition of a 25th recommendation. Here we go. That will provide or require a 6-foot landscaping berm or similar
May I suggest suitable alternative?
suitable alternative, thank you very much, on the 37th Avenue Southwest and 23rd Street Southwest edges of the property.
Very good. We have a motion by Commissioner Bauman to approve based on the 24 recommendations of staff with an additional recommendation of a 6-foot berm or suitable alternative along 37th and 23rd. Is there a second?
Second?
Second from Commissioner Sessions. Any discussion on this motion?
I'd love to just say, Mr. Nybakken, I hope you know that this is meant to hopefully give you the tools to help make this the best property possible. And we really, again, appreciate, or I very much appreciate what you're doing. It's very exciting, and just want to make sure that this starts out absolutely on the right foot with no regrets and no coulda, shoulda, wouldas from the get-go.
Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demacus,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Hochhalter,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Kibler,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Sessions.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, final item we have is a conditional use permit amendment. Request from Taylor Rovick representing Don Keller of D&DK Properties LLP for an amendment to conditional use permits number 3594 and 3712 to extend the deadline of final completion from October 30th, 2021 to June 15, 2022. The legal description of the property is Outlot 37 of the northeast of the southwest of the northwest of the southeast, Section 29, 155 north, 82 west, Ward County, addressed as 1820 Highway 2 Bypass East. So we'll turn it over to staff for the report.
All right, thank you, Chairman Demacus. So this is an aerial view of the property. It's really hasn't changed much at all, actually, since the last one, other than the notification area is now 600 feet versus the 300 was initially for the previous conditional use permit they came in for. Looking at the existing zoning of the property is still zoned M1 Light Industrial District, and it is still designated as industrial in the future land use map, with the conceptual greenway connection still going through the northern half of the property. Now, what's up on the screen now is actually the existing site improvement plan that they had submitted back in 2018. Notable on this actually is the asphalt paving that was shown to be going around the site, including a loop out in the back and additional parking spaces in front and some additional paving around the back of it aside from the loop, which I'll go into a bit more in detail what I saw when I did my site inspection earlier this month. Other than that, we also have the existing landscaping plan. Now, notable on this is the foundation plantings around the building, the strip of landscaping that's supposed to be in the front of the parking area that was put in, and the large, long line of site obscuring trees that are on the northeast side of the property. Now, this one actually hasn't been, this is actually one of the conditions that this plan should have been amended per, was it, so from resolution 3594, and that was condition, let's see, condition 4 of that one, and resolution 3712, which brought it again forward as condition 2A. So that has not been done at this time, and the idea with that condition was to actually go and amend it to reflect evergreen conifers at 1 per 20 feet along the entire outdoor storage area on the property. So at this time, that actually has not been done. And so that's the first observations we made. Then going into actual site photos I took on my site inspection. So that whole area on the northeast, I'll go back to, that's the whole northeast strip of trees actually can be seen, or what would be the trees can be shown, seen in this photo. So currently they have some stuff there. So the trees have been put in. Also, what I noted on there was that the landscaping plan also made note of an electronic gate and a wrought iron fence. Now, the wrought iron fence and electronic gate, well, they were on there on the landscaping plan specifically. They are not actually part of the landscaping meant for site obscuration. It's staff's belief that that was actually more so as an aesthetic choice made by the applicant. So those not being there specifically doesn't make or break those conditions as far as them actually having been met. The trees aren't there yet would kind of make or break that very specific condition. So here's another site photo. This was of the turn lane. So as part of the initial resolution 3594, there was a condition that a traffic study be done. As part of the traffic study, it was determined that a turn lane be put in. And so this is from an earlier site visit we did in November. We were out doing site visits anyways, and we drove past, took some photos on our way. And so this was actually the same day that actually they removed all the cones and opened up that turn lane. We just happened to catch it right before they did that. And so yeah, they actually did go and put the left-hand turn lane, or sorry, right-hand turn lane in. And yeah, we actually captured a photo of that and some of the screening area and the parking. Now this is another photo of the property. This is just the front of it. You can see the offices in front, along with the parking area that was proposed, but missing from it would then be the landscaping strip and the curbing that would be in front of that front row of parking. Now, this is a closer look at that same photo, which I actually managed to locate. There's some landscaping that has been done in the form of the 4-foot foundation plantings, which I circled one I could see easily in the photo with a red circle. And so there has been some site compliance done as far as the landscaping requirements. Now, this is a photo from earlier this year of that same front parking area. In this case, notably absent again is the curbing and landscaping strip that's required per the site improvement plan. Let's see. This is a photo of the tanks that were installed as a result of the previous conditional use permit through resolution number 3712. And this is a photo of some of the asphalt that was installed after. So this would have been installed after the actual aerial photo we had, which was from spring of 2020. Now, due to the conditions, this time of year is a lot of snow and ice everywhere, we couldn't actually go and determine the full extent of the pavement that was put down. So it's unknown at this time whether they've actually completed to the full extent that was shown in the site improvement plan on one of the previous slides. And this is a photo of the front office, which in this case, the landscapings and plantings aren't actually visible this time due to snow.
gonna guess that there are probably still there underneath the snowbank, but, you know, they were fairly young plantings by the look of it. Now, going over the findings of fact more specifically, then the applicant has submitted a complete application. As I mentioned previously, the future land use map designation, the zoning designation have not changed since conditional use permits were applied for. The applicant did not meet the October 30th deadline for the completion of all the conditions. And more specifics on the conditions with it, the applicant is in compliance with Condition 5 of Resolution 3712 relating to the placement of diesel fuel tanks, and Conditions 1 through 3 of Resolution 3594, which relate to a traffic study having done a stormwater management plan, which was included as part of the packet that we gave you. I didn't include it in the slides because, well, there's a lot to it. And the erosion control practices would be put in place, which they have done to, which they actually have done to this point. Let's see. Number 5 is that the application is actually out of compliance with Conditions 2A, 2B, and 4 of Resolution 3712 relating to the screening requirements for outdoor storage areas, the amending of the landscaping plan to reflect those screening requirements, being the evergreen trees or potentially a berm in their place, and the provision of spill prevention control and countermeasure plan respectively. Which in case of the countermeasure plan, as I noted in the staff report, was that there was some discrepancy that needs to be resolved at this point. Let's see, then in 6, the applicant is in partial compliance with Condition 3 of Resolution 3712 related to the required site improvements. There was some degree of paving and landscaping that had been done, but it did not appear that was done entirely up to that point. And finally, Conditions 1, 6, and 7 of Resolution number 3712 relating to the various procedural aspects of the application are not applicable to the amendment request. And Conditions 4 and 5 of Resolution number 3594 relating to the conditions are already addressed in these findings as they were Conditions 2A and 2B of Resolution number 3712. And then finding of fact 8 is that the Planning Commission has authority to hear the case and either approve or deny the requested amendment. And then I guess for staff recommendation with all this in mind, staff recommends Planning Commission adopt our findings of fact and approve the request to extend the deadline to complete the conditions associated with resolutions number 3594 and 3712 to extend the deadline from October 30th, 2021 to June 15th, 2022. And I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Offerdahl.
Is it safe to say here, Mr. Baumgartner, that this is the second deadline they've missed on this project now since 2018?
So
they missed the initial one back in, 19? Then they missed this one in 21?
So Commissioner Offerdahl, Chairman Demakis, I would say that it isn't necessarily the second deadline they've missed. What we require as far as conditional use permits is that they show substantial compliance, that they've done some work on it, otherwise it would expire. So in that case, there is an asphalt plant there. They do have parking in. They have made some moves to it, so it's, in that regard, it's more of a moving target as long as they keep working toward it. They're showing compliance there to some degree. There wasn't a set deadline at any one point for them to be in full compliance with it as far as that goes. So while they didn't meet this deadline that was set at the last meeting, there wasn't a hard, you have until October 30th to get all this done with the previously associated conditional use permit or the site plan improvements.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else for staff from the commission? Okay. Thank you, Peter. If we need you, we'll let you know. So we will open the public hearing on this matter. Is anybody present who wishes to speak on this application? Anyone who wishes to speak against the application? Go ahead. Please come forward. You would sign in, give us your name, and the floor is yours.
So I just have a concern about, my
ma'am.
name is Tammy Tibbles.
Thank you.
And I'm with Keith Welding, Keith Hartlip. We're right across the road from Keller's. And we got the notice from the city, so I was inquiring about what it was about. So I talked to John, and he informed me about what it was. And we're a little concerned about the asphalt plant aspect of it all. They did start their asphalt plant last summer, and there was like a big dust cloud, and it was quite toxic when it was running. So I did a little research on it, and I found out that they are potentially harmful if they're not properly handled. And they can produce toxic air pollutants and skin irritations, disease, whatever, within 2 to 2.5 miles of the plant. And therefore, I compiled a list of questions and concerns that I have. And I talked to Keith's nephew, which he works for American Engineering and Testing out of Minneapolis. And he helped me with this, so here are my questions. When was the last time the asphalt plant was updated? And does it have modern controls? And will the stack emissions be checked at the plant, and if so, by whom? And does the plant have a bag house for dust control? And have the bags in the bag house been changed, and if so, by whom? And how will the yard dust be handled from the truck traffic? And who is going to be responsible for monitoring the problems like air quality, smell, oil droplets, dust? Is the city going to monitor this? Will the city require cleanup for any problems that happen? And will the city have the authority to shut the plant down if we do have problems? And how long will the plant be there? What are the hours of operation? And do the permits have to be renewed each year? So those are my basic questions.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps staff can address those questions. I don't believe the commission's in a position to answer them.
Thank you, Chairman Dominguez, members of the commission. As far as all of those additional conditions of approval, they're seeking an amendment specifically to the date extension to complete all those. To me, this is new information. I think it's, I'll look to Stephanie. We can add conditions at this point. I mean, we're opening up and obtaining new information regarding the amendment, and therefore new conditions to address and mitigate issues that are now known can be incorporated into this amendment. Is that correct? Or is it just, are they considering approving an extension and or not approving an extension?
Commissioner, members of the Planning Commission, I believe at this time you're considering on whether or not you're going to grant them an extension on the conditional use permit. The questions that the member of the public has brought forward, they're all valid questions, but they would require an investigation, would be my recommendation as to whether or not those are any issues or concerns. The applicant for the conditional use permit, if they're here, I don't know if they are, could maybe respond to some of them as well and offer some clarification for the community member as well. So, but as far as the issue before you is whether or not you want to grant them the extension of the conditional use permit issue. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. The public hearing is still open if anybody wishes to address this item.
Good evening, my name is Taylor Rovig, I'm with Keller Paving and Landscaping. Just wanted to address a couple of the items that she had with the plant updates. All of those are updated annually. We have to have certifications to be able to even operate it. The Department of Health also does an inspection annually. They can stop it at any time. and take a look at what we have going on. As a part of starting the plant this fall, we did run into some issues with some water clarity, or not water clarity, not enough water at the time, so the baghouse was running dry. That essentially did start the dust cloud that she had seen. So we did get that squared away. That was on a portable plant. We will be bringing our stationary plant, which is right now at Sundries. So that one will be coming down there before June 15th. Other than that, basically if you were to draw some lines outside of the office and shop that we have right now, that is all encompassed in asphalt. The trees have been ordered, they haven't been installed. We ran into some time conflicts towards the end of the year. For the back, to eliminate the dust, that was the loop that they showed going around the asphalt plants and the piles. There really shouldn't consist of any dust, but if there would be, a water truck will be on site at all times to be able to handle that. I guess if there's any other questions, please feel free to ask.
Any questions for the applicant from the commission? Hold on.
I do, yes.
I do too. So Commissioner Barnett, you can go
would you like
first.
to go first? Okay. To what extent, if any, did the drought come into play with your ability to, I know trees can be sensitive. Is that a factor? I thought I'd read that somewhere in the application.
With the drought, we have a well that we have on site, so we can get as much water as we possibly want. The trees will get watered
Okay, yeah, that was.
in a
my
timely
concern,
fashion, yes.
Watering of them.
Yep.
Okay. So it shouldn't be
Shouldn't
an
be an
issue
issue.
going forward. If they need to be watered, you guys will be handling that.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. My question is, there's been work progressing along the requirements, and we're at an extension again, and frankly, I'm not willing to give another one. If there's an extension received, will this work be completed by the deadline? Yes or no?
Yes.
And you're absolutely certain about that?
I am.
Okay, because I don't want to see Keller Paving here again for another extension. It's time to get the work done.
Understood.
You had a deadline and you knew it, and I've got problems with that. I understand things get busy, but when you have known timeframes, you need to comply with them. That's my position. That's all I have. Is there anything else from the commission?
I got one too, the Commissioner.
Commissioner Alvarado, yes, sir.
I thought the asphalt loop was supposed to be paved. Are we doing just gravel and water now? Can somebody refresh my memory? I know we had this conversation in depth back in 2021 on the second extension.
To my understanding, the asphalt loop will be paved.
So all the way around, so you're just using water as a temporary mediation of dust control, and then you'll asphalt that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that all? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. All right. Anything further from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I have
Yeah.
a question for Mr. Van Dyke. Mr. Van Dyke, I'm wondering, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. Tammy? I'm wondering if the issues that Tammy has is something that could be taken up with the First District Health Unit as far as their EPA section, that maybe those could be addressed, or?
Chairman Dominguez, Commissioner Sessions, it's a possibility, so I don't have that. She wants to follow up with the First District Health, I'd be advised. It does sound like there's some recertification that does go on with some of this machinery. Whether or not that's adequate, I think there was an explanation given that provides some context to what happened specifically. I do think if it does happen again, that would be a very appropriate recourse for the neighboring property owner to explore. Obviously, we don't do air quality here at the city. We would defer to First District Health, and EPA. So certainly that would be the next step to explore what other issues there are.
Thank you.
Anything further? Anybody else who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the hearing. Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to adopt staff, to recommend approval, adopt staff findings of fact, and approve the request to extend the deadline to complete the conditions associated with Resolution 3594 and 3712 from the original date of October 30th, 2021 to June 15th, 2022, to allow them time to complete the remaining work.
All right, there is a motion from Commissioner Barnett, and I'm not going to repeat all of it. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Second from Commissioner Iverson. Any discussion?
Just one thing I would like to say, I don't think that any of us on the Planning Commission board are in a position to offer advice, but I would really encourage Tammy to reach out to your proper government authorities. I don't think any of us can tell you who those are, but reach out to those appropriate folks. And unfortunately, you know, that isn't us at this point in time, but there are people out there that can help you.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Chairman Demakis, if I may get some clarification on this, the motion, you are the approving body actually in this case. You're not recommending to city council. You're making the decision in this case as to that you would.
Yes, recommending approval of the extension.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Anything further? So we're clear, this decision is made here for other members of the commission. Commissioner Baumann.
Just as this is all kind of ruminating, I think with staff too, this won't be a formal motion, but if you could take a moment to just kind of familiarize yourself additionally with asphalt plants and the special conditions from the state and air quality, et cetera, just so that I think we all get the professional opinion maybe ahead of time so that we can have that as best we can, and we all keep ourselves from surprises on who's in charge of what. So if you could brush up on that, that would be appreciated.
Very good. Anything further? All right, we'll call the roll.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demakis,
Yes.
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Hochhalter,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Kibler,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Sessions.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. That is the end of tonight's agenda. We are adjourned.
Justin Hochhalter.
Is now